The Vendée Globe racecourse is the biggest racetrack in the world. It's non-stop, single-handed, one lap of the planet. And what that means when you start from France is a trip down the Atlantic, a circumnavigation around Antarctica, and then a trip back up the Atlantic again. So let's look at that in the three sections. We start in the town of Les Sables-d'Olonne in the Vendée region, and the Vendée region is the sponsor of the race, hence it's called the Vendée Globe race. From there, we head out west, out of the Bay of Biscay. As soon as we've cleared the Bay of Biscay, we can drop south, and the aim is to get into the trade winds as quickly as we can. So that's the area of wind generally that starts south of the Canaries and blows from east to west across the Atlantic. We cross the equator, and that means navigating the doldrums, an area where there's no wind at all. So when we start coming down the Atlantic, we'll be looking for our position to cross the doldrums, where the area with less wind is as small as possible. And then we're into the South Atlantic, and we're in the South Atlantic trade winds. And this time we're on the west of the South Atlantic, and we go down the coast of Brazil. Once we're about 3/4 of the way down the coast of Brazil, we should be looking for an opportunity to get down into the Southern Ocean and make our way east to the first mark of the course, and that is the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa, which we must leave to port on our left-hand side. So as soon as there's an opportunity, we break free of the West Atlantic, and we will be looking for a low pressure system to drive us down into the south. And then we're in an area that's called the Southern Ocean. So that's the second stage of the course. On this second stage of the course, this is where we actually circumnavigate the globe. And the idea here is that we go as far south as we can, because that allows us to circumnavigate the globe with less miles. If you imagine the shape of the globe and your job is just to go around it, then the distance to travel around the world is shorter, closer to the poles than it is at the equator. So we will drop down as far south as we can, and that's going to be defined by an ice limit, which will be given to us by the race committee. And the idea with the ice limit is to stop skippers taking crazy risks by going into an area where there's icebergs. So it keeps everything equal, and everyone will follow this ice limit as how far south they go. So that second leg, that takes us initially into the Indian Ocean, and then we go past the bottom of Australia and New Zealand, and we end up in the Pacific Ocean, and then drive all the way south to Cape Horn. So we've got our next two marks of the course will be passed in that second leg. So Cape Lewin, which is the southwest corner of Australia, we must leave that to port, and then Cape Horn we must also leave to port. So this second chunk of the course is going to be the longest, so that's 5 or 6 weeks we will spend in the Southern Ocean. Cold temperatures, big breeze, big waves. This is going to be when the most pressure is on us as skippers. And then the final leg for us is back up the Atlantic to finish in Les Sables-d'Olonne. So we round Cape Horn, and this time we travel up the west side of the Atlantic by the South American coast, all the way up to cross the equator. And then once we're across the equator, we'll need to decide whether we're going in a direct line to Cape Finisterre, which is the corner of the Bay of Biscay, or whether we have to stay to the west and go around the Azores high and take a more circuitous route into the finish. But basically we're coming all the way up the Atlantic, and then finally a run into the Bay of Biscay and finish in Les Sables-d'Olonne.